So welcome to day 5 of our 21 days in the book of John, and I hope that it's been encouraging for you so far, and today is going to be no different. I believe it's going to be very encouraging. If you've missed any of them, just simply scroll down and you'll see them. But today, chapter 5, verse 1, 2, and 3. Simple, easy, relevant. There's no red letters. There's nothing that Jesus is being quoted for here in verse 1, 2, and 3. Yet, Jesus is saying more in verses 1, 2, 3 than perhaps any chapter in the Bible. And we'll miss it if we aren't careful. Because check it out. Verse 1, it says, after this, there was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Jesus went up to Jerusalem because there was a feast. Okay, this could have been a number of different feasts. We don't know which one. Could have been the Passover. We don't really know for sure. But the one thing that I feel pretty confident in, there was certainly a vibe in Jerusalem. There was a buzz. There was some excitement, some celebration. Chances are there was 2, 3, maybe even 4 times the amount of people in Jerusalem that there normally would be. And you would think that considering most likely this celebration was a celebration of the goodness of God, the faithfulness of God, and that here God is wrapped himself in flesh in Jesus, and he's walking among people. And you would think that God would immediately, when he hit Jerusalem, would go straight to the celebration, wouldn't you? But verse 2 and 3 says that now there is in Jerusalem by the sheep gate a pool, which is called in Hebrew Bethesda, having 5 porches. In these lay a great multitude of sick people, blind, lame, paralyzed, waiting for the moving of the water. You see, Jesus came into Jerusalem, and instead of going straight to the celebrations, he went straight to the place where nobody else wanted to be. He went straight to the untouchables. He went straight to the people that lived in the margin. Listen, if this doesn't encourage you today, I don't know whatever will, because the truth is every one of us need a Savior that will enter the margins of life, that will enter in the places where the untouchables are, the sick and the hurting and the lost, because that's me and you. And before he went to the parties, before he went to the celebrations, before he went to the feast, the first thing he did is he went to the place where nobody else wanted to be. And all these sick and all these paralyzed and all these lame were. And he goes there first. Man, that's so encouraging to me. And, in the pool of Bethesda, that meaning is actually house of grace. And, all of them, they were laying there waiting on the waters to be stirred. I don't know the entire story, but I know this, that it was only room enough for one person to hit the water first before they would get healed. And that would be it. And they would have to wait for the next stirring. But when Jesus came to that pool, the pool of Bethesda, it was known for a house of grace, but there was a very certainly insufficient amount of grace there, wasn't there? But when Jesus entered into the picture, now there's not an insufficiency of grace. Now there's an abundance of grace. Now there's a more than sufficient amount of grace. So truly, now that Jesus is in the picture, we're not just talking about an insufficient grace. We're talking about a house of grace. And this is a beautiful, beautiful picture that I believe that all of us should be encouraged by today. Because when Jesus does come into the mix, anybody who chooses to go with him, he will give life. Anybody that chooses to, I'm not saying that everything's going to be perfect. I'm not going to say everything that's going to be just rosy and everything's going to be peachy. But I'm going to tell you, you're not going to have to roll the dice and hope for the lottery when you have Jesus. You see, I'm not big into luck. I don't believe in luck. I believe in being blessed, and I believe that all my blessings come from my Father up above. And I'm thankful because I live in a house of grace, because Jesus showed up at my pool, the one where other people were celebrating off. People had forgotten about me. People had written me off. I was an outcast and I was in the margins, but Jesus, before he went to the celebration, showed up in the margins and did a great work in the margins. Anybody else live there? Anybody else ever felt like an outcast? Anybody ever felt like you've been left out, betrayed, hurt? Maybe you need healed, maybe emotionally, physically, mentally. I don't know, whatever it is, but I can tell you this. You've got a Savior that lives and carries with him a house of grace. And there is more than a sufficient amount of grace to go around for me and you and everybody else. Be encouraged today. Love you guys.